Hi, I'm Erin McQuaid-Wright, Vice President of Advancement for the Women's Foundation of the South. We are a new grant maker centering and amplifying the voices of women and girls of color across 13 southern states in the US, based in New Orleans. We had originally planned to invite you over for lunch today, but COVID caused us to pivot to a virtual event. Had you visited us in person, you'd have seen the WB Collective, a beautiful co-working space presented by the Women's Business Enterprise Council, or WBEC South. Unlike many foundations, WFS was not established with one big gift. It was powered by gifts of all sizes from everyday people, as well as institutional grants. This means we do grant making and fundraising side by side. We're raising $100 million over the next 5 years to serve 13 states across the US South. To talk more about our approach, I'd like to introduce you to our founding president and CEO. As a 24-year veteran of philanthropy, Carmen James Randolph initially launched her philanthropic career at the Meyer Foundation in Washington, D.C. Since then, she has leveraged more than $20 million in new investments from national and regional funders to support and transform marginalized communities. Carmen is formerly the Vice President of Programs at the Greater New Orleans Foundation, where she helmed a team of 12 professionals and presided over $11 million of grant making and programming. Carmen is one of the founders of the Women's Foundation of the South and serves as its founding president and CEO. Hi, Carmen.
Thanks, Erin, and thank you all for being here with us today. The rates of maternal mortality for Black women in Louisiana are dire. Black women in our state die 4 times the national average due to childbirth. You may have seen the new documentary Aftershock, released on Hulu last week. Aftershock follows families following the preventable deaths of their loved ones after childbirth. We were excited to have one of the surviving family members, Ms. Shawnee Benton Gibson, join us last week on our Clubhouse discussion on this topic. Black maternal mortality is a national epidemic. As such, Louisiana is at the epicenter. The work of WFS is addressing this crisis by amplifying the voices and leadership of women of color. We are creating a new narrative about who they are, their promise, and the challenges they face. I encourage you to visit our website, follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Clubhouse to learn more. We also aim to combat the lack of investment in nonprofits led by women of color in the South who are doing the most with the smallest investment. According to the Ms. Foundation's Pocket Change report, nonprofits in the South led by women of color receive only $2.36 per woman and girl in philanthropic investment compared to more than $16 received by their white counterparts. When a nonprofit is led by a Black woman, the investment is often half. WFS centers gender and racial justice. We are advocates for reproductive justice, and we embrace a holistic and comprehensive view of reproductive justice that is aligned with the reproductive issues confronted by women and girls, including trans women and non-binary people throughout their life cycle. Birthing and the right to a healthy birth is at its core. The point of this gathering is to share what we've learned with our fellow grant makers and ask you to join us in centering the work of nonprofits in our state that are led by women of color. Now I'd like to turn it over to Christy Slater, our Vice President of Programs. Christy?
Greetings, everyone. In our 5th month of existence, we made our first round of grants, giving nearly $200,000 to 28 women of color leaders in Louisiana. These leaders serve on the front lines in the fight for gender equity, reproductive justice, healing, and prosperity in communities across the state, and were instrumental in serving communities in the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. We gave each of these leaders the opportunity to rest and restore. And by that, I mean restoring by participating in our flagship program, Woke at Rest, or Women of Color at Rest, which is a 2-day healing retreat. And we allow them to elevate their leadership with a personal restoration grant to be used however they needed to further their leadership development, whether that be vacation or therapy, medical needs, coaching, whatever best met their needs. Here's what we learned from our first round of grants. 95% of the women of color leaders experienced positive increases in 3 or more self-care practices, be it sleeping or eating well, hydrating, moving or exercising, connecting with friends and family, and relaxing. 100% of the women of color leaders experienced changes in their leadership, such as stepping away or taking vacation, delegating and shaping or sharing knowledge with other colleagues inside their organizations, increased mindfulness or patience or calm, setting boundaries and shifting approaches to their work. Also, 100% of the women of color leaders experience changes inside their organizations, such as increased team building or self-care practice development, coaching or developing other leaders, improved organizational practices for both staff and clients, improved communication, and increased compensation in some instances, and the addition of paid leave for staff. Additionally, what we learned at Woke at Rest blew us away. At the retreat, we asked, what does freedom look like? And the responses uncovered the need for a deeper discussion about the maternal mortality crisis in Louisiana. We had to dive deeper. The conversation you'll see in today's screening is that deeper dive. We're calling it Learn With Us, and there are more episodes on the way. Think of this as a site visit with several local organizations. It's an opportunity to listen, learn, and join us in resourcing this important work. With that said, let's start the screening.
I just thought, I'm pregnant, I'm gonna have a baby.
I can remember hearing that you had 1 foot in the grave.
I get teary just thinking about how much trauma has been experienced.
We shouldn't have to go into birth with this fear.
Black Maternity Mortality Rates Roundtable, take 1.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am Carmen James Randolph. I am daughter of Cynthia and Stephen James. I'm granddaughter of Ethel and Eunice, and my great-grandmother was a Southern midwife from South Carolina. She delivered my daddy, she delivered his sisters, and babies throughout the community. I'm also wife of Courtney Randolph and mother of Asha, Kari, and Malik.
Hey y'all, I'm Kimberly Novad. I am the mother of Saul and Josephine. I am the daughter of Patricia, the granddaughter of Ellen, and also great-granddaughter of Martha.
Hello, I'm Victoria Williams. I am the daughter of Drusilla Perryman Royal, the granddaughter of Nadine Helen Davis and Archie Lee Royal, and the mother of Sanaya, Shiloh, and Skylar.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christy Wallace Slater. I am the daughter of Wayne and Karen Wallace, the granddaughter of Audrey and Albert Baquet and Bernice Claverie Duplanche and Willie Wallace. I am the wife of Jeffrey Slater and the mother of Jeffrey and Gabrielle and bonus mom to Nigel.
Hi, I'm Mary Schulteis. I am the daughter of Cleveland and Hazel Thomas, the granddaughter of Amos and Edolia Citizen. I am the wife of Charles Schulteis, the mother of Courtney, Judith, and Elizabeth Schulteis, and the grandmother of Hazel, Blaze, and my new baby, Jade. Glad to be here.
Sweet.
Good morning, ladies. I'm Shanika Valcour-LaDuff. I am the daughter of Shirley and Robert, the granddaughter of Paulette and Preston and Audrey and Robert. I'm the mother of Lena, the wife of Don, and I'm the honorary auntie of a lot of babies.
Yes, beautiful. Well, we are so excited for this conversation today. We wanted to ground this moment as sisters, as mothers, as aunties, as grandmother, and as friends, to talk about birth in Louisiana. We share a common belief that all women, all birthing people, should enjoy a beautiful experience of giving birth. But here in Louisiana, especially for Black women, that often is not the case.
Right.
Black women here in this state die at 4 times the national average for giving birth. So we want to talk about that. Peel the layers back and understand from your perspective as women who work in multiple facets of this field, what the experience is like for women who are giving birth in Louisiana.
A lot of times we come into birth with so many expectations of what it's going to be like, right? Based off what we see on TV, based off other people's experience, based off our best friend, right? I've just seen so many different outcomes, even for myself, being bamboozled by the healthcare system. I get teary just thinking about how much trauma has been experienced for myself. But yes, as a doula, and caring and holding space for our parents and our birthing people has been, secondary, third trauma. It's traumatizing for us as well because we're carrying their experience.
And still processing our own, right?
Still processing our own. My baby's only 3 years old, so I still processing our own.
A lot of times I say I am that client. I was that client. I was that patient. I was a high-risk pregnancy, mother of twins. I was the mother who stayed in the hospital for almost 30 days with my twin pregnancy, not because they were unhealthy, but because I had some of the medical conditions that I see my moms have today and wasn't really educated on what the later impacts of those medical diagnoses like preeclampsia would be on me long term. When you see negative birth outcomes, whether it be for the mom or for a child or an infant, that is the most painful thing to experience, to walk out of the hospital with 2 babies when some moms will not walk out with 1. I am a nurse. When I delivered the twins, I had a mom in a room several doors down that did not walk out with her baby. And I had to come out of my room, send my babies back to the nursery, and go talk with her. I'm honored to be here today, to share my experiences, but I am that patient.
It's beautiful you make that point because many of us do this work from a place of connection, from a place of our own experiences that make us just incredibly passionate to make things better for other people.
My heart is racing just listening to the stories and knowing how we all connect. We've all had our personal experiences, and we're also deeply rooted in the birthing experiences of other women in Louisiana. When I first started birth work, it was this seeing everything through rosy shades, like, oh, this is all beautiful. And it is. It's the most beautiful thing women will ever experience. But lately, I've been getting this theme of these phone calls. I had a prenatal visit with a client last week, and I'm like, let's talk about your birth. What do you imagine? What do you want, her and her partner? And she was like, yeah, all that's good, but please just don't let me die. And I'm like, oh. It's very heavy when you're getting phone calls from these Black women who say, I heard about this and I heard about that. Can you be there? Can you make sure I don't die? And I'm like, we shouldn't have to go into birth with this fear. So it's become very, very heavy.
Growing up, I'm so much older than you all. Y'all, I feel it today. But some of the sayings that were said, by grandparents and families about, they literally told, I can remember hearing that you had one foot in the grave.
They still say
And having 1 foot in the grave, and that's something I've always heard. And I heard it for so long that I knew that you have 1 foot in the grave. So I wanted to be happy for my daughter when she got pregnant, especially this last time. I have a little one that's only like 2 months old, but I was afraid. And then doing the work that we do every day, I'm supposed to be the strong mom, but I'm at her bedside and she's losing blood. You can see those things. And being a nurse, all of those symptoms that will come up. I'm looking at the catheter on the side of the bed. If anything goes wrong in this room, what will I be able to do?
Yes.
Well, Kimberly, I have just such a special place in my heart for you and the work that you're doing because it's born out of your experience. And your experience when things don't go well. So do you want to share with us?
Yeah, and I'm so inspired by y'all and being here with y'all, right? And talking about empowerment, because I really think of myself as a reluctant advocate. Sometimes I still don't even know, like how did I get here? Why am I here, right? And it's because I had no clue about the so-called battle that we face as Black women with our children. I got pregnant with my son, Saul. I just thought, I'm pregnant, I'm gonna have a baby. I never once thought that I would not have that baby, And, when so my son was born prematurely and he passed shortly after his birth. He was about a month old, and he had a stage 4 brain bleed. And so, most babies, when they get the brain bleed, they get better. But my son didn't get better. And I had to come to terms with that not only was I not going to bring him home, but that my entire vision and dream for what my family would be, it was over. And that was really, really hard for me to accept. It's been now 7.5 years. I'm not over it. And people don't get over it, No. And so I think that, this life lesson has given me the opportunity to understand that, one, this is a experience where somebody has 1 foot in the grave, right? Birth is so close to death. It's these transitions, right? My baby came from another world to join me here in this world. And he couldn't stay. But right? But because he lived, I was able to open my mind to the fact that I'm not the only one. When you go through the experience, it's very isolating. It feels like you're the only one. I blamed myself. I blamed my body. I thought, if I could have did more, But ultimately, I had to accept that I'm his mother. If there was more I could have done, I would have done it.
Right.
Yes.
I would have given my life for him.
For sure.
It was not the chance. It was not the opportunity I was given. And so when he died, I was so lost. And the more I learned about how many other women in my community were having this experience, right? I didn't even think about, the women who had died because that wasn't my experience.
Right.
I just started learning about all the babies who had died. And that did not sit well with me. How many people in our communities right now are missing because of preterm birth, because of infant mortality?
Wow.
These babies are our future. Who could they be? I have a 4-year-old daughter now. And I want to change things for her. I want to be responsible for that. And more than anything, the birth of Saul's Light is about me showing other women and other families that they are not alone in this journey. You know, how do you walk through this? How do you recover? How do you come back? How do you return to your life, to your marriage, your relationship, your community, your job, your parenting? And so that's why I'm here now as an advocate, is to be that for other people. Our work is really rooted in advocacy and equity, because we recognize that the families that are most harmed are the vulnerable people amongst us. You know, families that are undocumented, families that don't speak English, families that are poor, working poor, families that are Black just based on the strength of their race. I was one of those people. You hear the statistic that Black women have worse outcomes than someone of another race who has less accomplishments, right? I have a master's degree. I had private insurance. I had a partner. I had a home. And I found out that, you know, sometimes that stuff, when you're a Black woman in Louisiana, in the South, that stuff is not going to save you. Money is not going to save you. Your education is not going to save you.
Christy just became an auntie.
I did.
Just a few weeks ago. And before her nephew was born, we were talking about, just with anxiety, honestly, about the experience that your niece was going to have. And Christy, do you just want to share from your experience, and why were you so anxious for your niece?
Well, I was anxious because, you know, when you know the data, I think a lot of the conversations that we've had so far is like, you know, when I had my kids, I didn't know to be scared, right? I was just like, oh, this is just going, you know, we're just going to do this. I mean, I'm scared about, you know, I'm worried about what kind of mom I'm going to be, how this is going to be. I'm worried about this epidural, you know, all of these things. But I wasn't worried that we weren't going to walk out of the hospital. And when I had my daughter, things went wrong. And I had to have an emergency C-section, and my husband's in the room with me, and you know, Gabby's born, and I look at him, and he is white as a ghost, and I was like, "What's happening? Is she okay?" Because I didn't hear her cry or whatever. He's like, "She's good, 10 fingers, 10 toes," and he grabbed my hand, and he said, "Just come back to me," and I was like, "What? What's happening on the other side of this sheet?" Because, you know, you're draped. And so I look at the anesthesiologist. I was like, what's going on? What's going on? He was like, that's it. My heart started racing. He was like, good night. So he knocked me out. And next thing I remember, just thankfully, that I was wheeled out of the OR into the room. And I asked my husband, I was like, what's going on? He said, I watched enough medical shows to know if you see a hole in somebody that big, something's going wrong. But I mean, it was just, he was freaked out. He freaked me out. And the whole thing was, you know, just scary. And I didn't know anybody else who had ever had that experience. So when you're going through it, you feel alone, to your point, like, something was wrong. Why did we, you know, what happened to that? All of a sudden I had to have this emergency C-section. And so when, you know, just fast forward to the conversation I was having with Carmen about my niece, you know, just all of the things, right? She is single. She doesn't have a job, you know, just like her situation was totally different than mine. And I was like, how are they going to treat her? How is she going to be received? And the best thing I think what gave me any peace was that she decided to go the route of having a doula. And so she had the best birth experience of all of us, right? I was like, oh my God. I mean, it was just a beautiful, peaceful, calming. She had the best experience. What I'm appreciating about this conversation is just, it's also helpful to hear from others, because when we think it's just us, we don't realize that this is a systemic issue.
Right.
And that there is data to be collected, and that there is a bigger collective story.
Definitely.
I can say for myself, when I was having my children, you know, I found out at that time there was just so much that we as women don't talk about, you know, so everybody's happy you're having the baby and whatever, but to really talk amongst each other and like talk and prepare for the experience of birth, and to even think that I had a say in how I was going to have my baby. There was such a push in hospitals to not allow women to labor on their own, quickly push different medical interventions that would lead to a C-section. And just the experience of feeling unseen and unheard, and having to express myself over and over again. I just remember this one moment of my birth experience with my first child, that suddenly the room became full with all these people. And they just brought in like 7 medical students to just observe me. And it was this experience of being ogled, you know, while you're there laboring. And, you know, I was about to start pushing, and I have 7 medical students standing in the room. I didn't know who any of these people were. And when we first asked for them to leave, we were told, well, you're in a teaching hospital.
Wow.
Oh, no.
And it's like, no, I don't want to, you know, I'm not comfortable with this. I was really struck when you talked, Victoria, about being bamboozled, feeling like you were bamboozled by the system. That's not a good. That's not a good feeling.
Right.
Could not be.
That bait and switch is real.
So talk to us a little bit more about that. What was being bamboozled like?
So I was a teen mom. I had my daughter at 19, and then I got married, and my husband and I were planning to have another child. So I saw a OBGYN, and we had a conversation before I had my baby, because I had a C-section 9 to 10 years before I wanted to have my other child, Shiloh. Shiloh is 6 years old. So I was like, okay, I want to have a vaginal delivery. I do not want to have a C-section. Like, can you look at my records? You'll see that I did have a previous C-section, but it was not medically necessary. It was a scheduled delivery, labor, which means that I got Pitocin, which means that I had, the baby was stressed out, and all these different things happened. Then I ended up emergency C-section, right? That's how it always happened. And so she was like, oh yeah, no problem. You'll be able to have a vaginal delivery, and it was not until 28 to around 30 weeks, she was like, okay, yep, you're ready to schedule? Schedule? Schedule what? Your C-section. You're clearly gonna have a C-section. But I thought you were supportive of having, the word is a VBAC, and there are a lot of doctors who are not supportive of having a vaginal birth after a cesarean. There are very few in Louisiana, period, that will actually see you and deliver your baby after a C-section. So because of that medical risk, a lot of them do not want to take it. It is 1% chance that you could hemorrhage. Sometimes that goes up to 3% if you have another baby. It was such a debacle because I was so upset that I had an opportunity to possibly birth naturally or on my own without having a C-section or just giving me the try. I just wanted her to let me try. Just let me try. And that was not, so just that feeling of being told that this would happen. Like you say, we have all these dreams about what we think a birth would be and our expectations of like, yes, I'm going to labor. Yes, I'm going to get my chance to actually birth a baby through my vagina, vaginally, which is something that I've always wanted to, the way that I want to.
And then the problem is that they are giving C-sections to Black women more than other women.
I did have a successful C-section, and I am an advocate for parents who sincerely support parents who have had C-sections. So it's just those things that I recognize in that moment that I want control of something, of this process. I want it to be the way that I design, that I hope that it will be.
One of the things that I've said, and I've been saying this on a frequent, when I look at my clients, they are the CEO at this point. They're in charge.
You mentioned the empowerment, Ms. Carmen. You mentioned not knowing that you had a say. So many people don't know.
Right.
I had several moms, but one in particular I'm thinking about. After COVID, we were doing her prenatal. This was her third baby. So I'm telling her about birth preference and, giving her the explanation of this is what all this stuff is. You tell your doctor, how you want things to go. She said, oh, when did that start? It's been that way.
Yes.
You always have a say over what happens with your body. You can always call the shots to what's going on with your body. Now, if it's something that's not safe, I'm gonna let you know. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's be educated and informed when we make these decisions. But you don't have to accept anything that you don't feel comfortable with.
Right.
You are, like you said, the CEO of what happens with you and with your baby.
So I would like to pick up on a conversation that we had at our recent retreat, Woke at Rest. We had the opportunity to talk about what freedom would look like for you in this experience and in the work. And so many of you started talking about VIP birth. And you said that freedom would look like every birth being a VIP birth. And honestly, I had no idea what you were talking about. I was like, okay, yeah, every birth should be important.
Right.
I'm with it. And then the more you were talking about that, I was like, wait a minute, please excuse me, is this a thing?
Yes.
So can we talk about that a little bit more? Because
Yeah, can you tell us what that is? Explain, please.
Technically, a VIP birth would mean in a hospital situation, if there's someone with a certain status or a certain relationship or a certain bank account or, someone higher up in society who's coming to deliver. The red carpet is rolled out. Certain people are called. I used to be one of those people. Hey, such and such is coming. It's a VIP. And I would say, all my patients are VIP. Thank you. I got it, But special treatment is expected and rendered at a higher level than everybody else. And for me, I feel like that should be a given for every woman who comes in to experience birth.
You will get a private room. Your account is coded to a VIP. And when you had that code on your file, you smooth selling. You in the doors and out the doors. You don't get no bills at your house. You don't get a bill sent to you at all when you're a VIP. So I knew, no bills.
wait a minute.
I want a do-over.
Another one. I don't know about that.
No, I want to rewind. I don't want to do it
I wish.
again.
VIP birth as having physical therapy after a C-section. What?
Right.
You spend more time in physical therapy for a knee surgery than you do them slicing 7 layers of your skin open and delivering a whole person. And then after 6 weeks, they clear you. You're not cleared. You're not okay. Your inner wounds have not been healed.
That's why I tell all my clients, ask your OB for a referral for pelvic floor physical therapy. Because if you were delivering in France, you would be getting this automatically. But here we have to ask for it. So
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How in a state that has the highest rate of maternal mortality and infant mortality, how we can have something like VIP birth. Like how are people even identified as a VIP?
Status, money.
Yep.
Money.
Name. I can remember this, and this is at a local hospital. I was coded in the system as a VIP. And had a postpartum bleed after my last baby. Went to the hospital, got in there, and this was a question that came from someone that was black to me. She asked me, why are you in the system as a VIP? And before I knew it, I had passed out. Completely passed. I felt my lips trembling. I felt everything inside of me. Why would you question me, about my status, for what reason? At that, the time, that's what they put me in. I was an employee of the, facility, and and I was an auditor, and I probably was getting that VIP treatment. But at the same time, to be questioned again, you know, I had to come up with, how do I answer that?
I think because people perceived me well because of all these other things, when I did conceive again and have another baby, they like gave me everything. You know what I mean? Like the kitchen sink. It was like, we're gonna try this. Whereas I've noticed with some women who may be at a disadvantage socioeconomically, they will experience 2, 3, 4 losses, and nobody has ever suggested to them, you know, maybe there's something else we can do for your next pregnancy to help you carry this baby. I don't think I've ever felt more wounded than when my son died, you know? And so I don't want that for women, and I don't think that women should have to experience 2, 3, 4 losses before they get to a living child. So I'm always telling them, did you ask about the cerclage? Right. Did you ask about the progesterone? Did you ask about the bed rest? You shouldn't have to ask, right? And there's some really simple things that just requires your doctor to spend a little more time with you, to listen to you, to ask questions, and that could really change your birth outcome.
I just want to say one thing, that when you, just speaking to your question around why Louisiana has the worst birth outcomes and they haven't done anything, or like, what are they doing? I think that they're so focused on changing the person, like changing the phosician, that they forget that it's a system.
Yeah,
it is an
Because what
entire
I'm hearing,
system.
there's definitely a systematic approach to labeling or identifying women as a VIP.
Right. And I just want to say, you know, when Crescent City Family Service was awarded the Healthy Start Grant, it was the first time in the history that there were 4 Healthy Start initiatives. 4 in the state, probably could end up being 5 or 6, but that means our babies are dying.
Yes.
You know, and you want to celebrate, but then the work, you know, I said, okay, it's time to really roll up my sleeves. It's like Shanika said, it's time to get the boots on the ground.
When we improve health for Black women and Black babies, it improves for everybody.
It does.
Right? So it should definitely be our goal.
And I think that is the beauty, the flip side of what we're talking about. Because if this system understands and knows how to deliver a VIP experience and get a beautiful outcome for a mama with whatever her last name is, who may or may not look like you and you and you and me, and can get great outcomes, then we know it can be done for everybody.
Most definitely. And I know, I tell people, I know I'm not going to be the one to change anything in history. Not my generation. It's the future.
This is a deep thing. We're all clear about that. But I also want us to be clear that we are all working.
Oh yeah,
we won't
to
stop.
change.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I want to push back on you just on that, because in this conversation, many of the stuff that's been in this conversation, I had no clue to even. I didn't even know it was a thing to ask for. I would definitely, to even be my own advocate, I didn't even know it was in the realm of possibility. And so just the conversations, the one-on-ones, the ripple effect that's going to have is going to be the thing that makes the change.
We are only here because of you.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to take a pause. And we're going to come back and talk about changing things and what we're doing in our work and what you vision change might look like in your work. Thank you, ladies. We hope you enjoyed our conversation, learned something, and were moved with compassion to support the work of the Women's Foundation of the South, so that we can resource this beautiful work on the ground. Donate today so that we can save the lives of both mothers and babies. When we improve birth outcomes for Black mothers, we improve outcomes for everyone. Visit our website, follow us on social. The Women's Foundation of the South is more than a foundation. It is a movement. Join us.
this is, it was very moving for us. And we understand there might be questions that arise or comments or feedback. We would love to hear from you, our fellow funders, with what your thoughts are. And I see that someone has put in the Q&A, I'll read it out. I have an almost identical birthing experience as the young sister who lost her premature baby about 1 month old, at 1 month old, Saul. I'm so sorry for your loss. I lost my son 4 hours after an emergency C-section 7 years ago. Sorry. My question is, are there any healing story circles that you know are currently active where women might be able to tell their story and find support? I'm so sorry that happened. And I would love to turn to my colleague, Christy Wallace-Slater, to answer your question.
Thank you so much for the question. And like Erin said, I'm extremely sorry for your loss and for your experience. My recommendation would be to reach out to Saul's Light, and I am going to put the link to their website in the Q&A response, because they provide support to moms, and especially moms and families, that especially those that have experienced loss of their babies. And it's open to all moms. Certainly they support moms of color, but I mean, it's open to all moms. I think, while I don't know if there's a healing circle in particular, I know that is services that they provide, and they offer support to the family.
Thanks, Christy. And I see some feedback from another attendee. Thank you for sharing your stories and for using your voices to educate us in keeping our mamas and babies safe and thriving. Thank you for that feedback. One of the questions that we often get is about the trajectory of the Women's Foundation of the South, which is based in New Orleans, but has a total footprint of 13 Southern states. And so that's a lot of ground to cover from here to there. So Christy, will you share a little bit, and Jarvis, if you can put Christy on spotlight, what the time frame is for scaling up to all 13 states of the footprint of the Women's Foundation of the South?
Sure, thanks, Erin. So we learned a lot during the first Woke at Rest, and it has quickly become our flagship program. In addition to Woke at Rest, what we did prior to the retreat was use our strategic communications arm to highlight the agencies and the organizations that these leaders that they lead, especially because of, like I mentioned earlier, they were so instrumental in the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. So we used our platform to drive resources to them directly. And then the Woke at Rest retreat, coupled with the restoration grants, we've decided that as we enter other states, that's the method that we're going to use. So this year we are entering into Mississippi and Arkansas, and how we started was reaching out to our friends. So just like this conversation that we're having with you all today, we reached out to funder partners in both of those states to, one, make them aware of Women's Foundation of the South, and to share our learnings so far from our first Woke at Rest retreat, what the program is about, how we plan to support these leaders and further develop their leadership so that they can in turn better support the communities they serve. So that's our process. We start with our friends in philanthropy. We get recommendations for who these leaders should be, which is very important in each of the states. For Louisiana, we knew a lot of these leaders, but some of them were new to us, even for this first cohort. And then we will invite leaders to apply to be a part of Woke at Rest and receive the restoration grants. And so that's going to be our process as we enter each state. Our plan is over the next 5 years to get to all 13 states using Woke at Rest as our way to enter a community and build relationship. And it did, in addition to that, what I didn't highlight earlier with this first cohort in Louisiana was that many of these leaders knew of each other, but they didn't know each other directly. So now they are partnering in different ways. And we hope to build those same level of networks in each state, and then at the same time start to build networks across states so that we can collectively develop a strategy to build the health, wealth, and power of women and girls of color across the South. Thanks, Erin.
Thanks, Christy. You know, the leaders we heard from today were so generous with their time and their stories. And we owe a debt of gratitude to them. And so, Christy, if you could speak to how we already did Woke at Rest in Louisiana. We dove deeper with the Learn With Us conversation, this first conversation here. Can you talk a little bit about the Foundation's plan for engaging with this group and the larger group that attended Woke at Rest going forward?
Absolutely. So you've all just seen this first Learn With Us series. Next week, we are filming a conversation on power building. And our plan is to continue to elevate and amplify the stories of women and girls of color across the South. So while the initial Woke at Rest sparked the interest to go deeper into some of these issues, which led us to this moment in producing the Learn With Us series, we don't want to stop with these first couple of conversations. We want to share these stories and be able to, for us to learn and for us to inform the field with these stories, and we'll continue to Learn With Us series as we enter each of these states. One other thing that beyond Learn With Us, we have received a request from every single leader that participated in the first Woke at Rest conversation to come back together. And so we are planning we'll be planning a second retreat for those leaders. But we also, what I want to make clear is that it's not one and done in each state. We want to be able to have a cohort, a second cohort, third cohort in each state to continue to reach out to leaders. We know there's not just 28 women of color leaders in Louisiana. And so we want to be able to build that network, support these leaders, and continue to learn to inform our investments and to inform the field so that we can collectively make stronger investments across the South.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you everyone who asked a question or gave feedback. What you can see on the screen are those who are already involved in funding this work. And we believe that amplifying the voices, priorities, and collective power of women and girls of color in the South is an area where all efforts are needed, and there is no such thing as too many collaborators. As the data shows, philanthropy has created a funding vacuum for these organizations, and we want you to partner with us in reversing that vacuum through this important work. One of the ways you can help is we need your recommendations, as Christy said, of women of color leaders in Louisiana who could benefit from Woke at Rest. There are leaders we don't know. So please send your recommendations to Christy at womensfoundationsouth.org. And Christy, if you could put your address in the chat so they can have that, that would be great. We also need to raise $350,000 to provide the next experience of Woke at Rest and Learn With Us again over the next year. As you can see from the logos on the screen, those who fund our work are in good company here. So please email me, Erin, at womensfoundationsouth.org, or call me at 504-266-0784 to find out more about sponsorship opportunities, and also look out for an emailed link next week to watch the next video in the series and learn what these leaders you saw today are doing to affect policies in our state. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.